One.
Well, this is all very broad. You would have to read a lot more Freud to get a better sense of his evidence for what he's saying, but without going into the whole ego, superego, id thing that we all know from high school psychology, there's at least a claim here that as far as the human mind goes, the human self, that there is this underneath, there is this vast region of the unconscious, which we are mostly unaware of. That at the very best, our conscious egos are the surface of the self. But again, of course, it's not just a claim that most of the human mind is unconscious. It's the nature of that unconscious, which is the real outrage, right? The really challenging and distasteful, one might say, thing. In regards to the dream being a censored or distorted expression of an unconscious wish, well, what about those wishes? What are those wishes that come out in dreams? Freud starts to talk and characterizes them here. The tendencies, however, against which the dream censor directs itself must now be described from the standpoint of this instance. One can say only that these tendencies, these unconscious urges, wishes, thoughts, are of an objectionable nature throughout, that they are shocking from an ethical, aesthetic, and social point of view, that they are things one does not dare even to think, or thinks of only with abhorrence. These censored wishes, which have attained to a distorted expression in the dream, are above all expressions of a boundless, reckless egoism. I mean, the idea, I suppose, is sort of in the background. Freud is talking about the mind, but Freud always has in mind about human beings that they are basically animals, that whatever they consider truly human about themselves, culture, morality, religion, spirituality, is at best, again, the surface, that underneath we are still animals, and we have the kind of desires that an animal has, the urges that an animal has. In the next paragraph, he says, the ego, which has been freed from all ethical restraints, because, we're asleep, feels itself in accord with all the demands of the sexual striving, with those demands which have long since been condemned by our aesthetic rearing, demands of such a character that they resist all our moral demands for restraint. The pleasure striving, the libido, as we term it, chooses its objects without inhibitions, and indeed prefers those that are forbidden. It chooses not only the wife of another, but above all those incestuous objects declared sacred by the agreement of mankind, the mother and sister in the man's case, the father and brother in the woman's. Even the dream of our 50-year-old lady is an incestuous one, its libido unmistakably directed toward her son. Desires which we believe to be far from human nature show themselves strong enough to arouse dreams. Hate, too, expends itself without restraint. Revenge and murderous wishes towards those standing closest to the dreamer are not unusual, towards those best beloved in daily life, towards parents, brothers and sisters, towards one's spouse and one's own children. These censored wishes seem to arise from a veritable hell. No censorship seems too harsh to be applied against their waking interpretation. Well, that's all very dramatic, isn't it? I mean, what a claim. That the dream, once properly understood, Freud says, can be understood as an expression of what we really are. It always comes in a censored, distorted form, and we can't even admit, he says, to ourselves when we're unconscious in our dreams what we really want, because we're ashamed of it. What do we really want? Well, I mean, we want what we want, And what we want or our urges may be entirely out of step with our conscious values. Not just our sexual urges, but also, as he says towards the end, violence as well. Anger, aggression, want, need. That the self we know is a fairly acceptable self, right? It's got ethics. It cares about other people. It has standards. It's civilized, we hope. But that underneath that civilized self is an animal, and an egoistic animal that doesn't take into account any standards except the gratification of its own desires. Which is, maybe it's true, maybe it's not, but it's one of the most influential theories of human nature ever worked out. That, underneath who we think we are is who perhaps we really are. And that self that we really are is a self that we're really not very proud of, that we find that we have to suppress it, not just hide it from others, but to a large degree, hide it from ourselves.